Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. The Commerce Department reports the U.S. economy grew 4.3% in the third quarter, topping expectations. What's driven the uptick? Tariffs on Chinese semiconductors coming in 2027. What the U.S. Trade Representative finds following a year-long report. President Trump unveiling plans for a new class of battleships as part of his vision to fast-track defense production. Details analysis on the proposed Golden Fleet. The FDA has approved a daily pill version of the weight loss drug Wegovy, making it the first GLP-1 pill to be cleared by regulators for obesity. What the decision means for the U.S. market.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Tuesday, December 23rd. I'm Paul Graney. Great to have you here. More Epstein files are out. The Justice Department this morning released nearly 30,000 more pages related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who's now dead. The files can now be accessed on the DOJ's website. The department warned that some documents contained false and unfounded claims against President Trump. It went on to say, quote, "Nevertheless, out of our commitment to the law and transparency, the DOJ is releasing these documents with the legally required protections for Epstein's victims." The DOJ started to release the Epstein files following the passage of a law last month. Officials said they are working to make redactions to protect possible victims of Epstein. And the Trump administration will slap tariffs on Chinese semiconductor imports, but they won't kick in until June 2027. The Office of the Trade Representative says the rate will be announced at least a month in advance. Such imports currently enjoy 0% duties. The announcement comes following a Section 301 investigation into Chinese chips launched by the Biden administration. The U.S. Trade Representative concluding in its report that China's targeting of the semiconductor industry for dominance is unreasonable. It says China is increasingly aggressive with non-market policies and practices. The report says that such targeting disadvantages U.S. commerce and thus requires further action. The decision to delay the tariffs until 2027 comes amid a tariff truce between the U.S. and China. And the new rule by the Federal Communications Commission essentially bans the next generation of Chinese-made drones. The drones have dominated U.S. skies for years. They're used for things like infrastructure and construction inspection, crop monitoring, professional and amateur video production, and even finding lost children and pets. However, since 2017, the foreign-made drones have been deemed a risk to national security. Now, the FCC has banned the import, sale, and use of all new drones made by foreign manufacturers, including the world's largest drone maker, DJI. The FCC said an executive branch group concluded those drones were capable of surveillance, gathering data, and conducting destructive operations here in America, and that its decision to ban them is based on that. The FCC ban does not include foreign-made drones currently in use or already approved for sale. Back in June, President Trump signed an executive order to speed up domestic drone production. And the U.S. economy grew 4.3% in the third quarter, driven by consumer spending, exports, and government spending. That's the fastest pace in 2 years. It follows a 3.8% expansion in the second quarter. Before the official report, the Atlanta Federal Reserve estimated 3.5% growth for July to September, much lower than the actual number. Consumer spending rising to 3.5% annual pace last quarter, up from 2.5%. There's also a rush to buy electric vehicles before the September 30th expiration of the tax credits. Exports grew at 8.8%, while imports fell 4.7%, both good for GDP. The new GDP data was delayed by the 43-day government shutdown. And in a social media post, President Trump said the tariffs are responsible for what he called the great numbers, adding, quote, "They will only get better."
It's a fantastic report, 4.3%. It's just about as good as GDP numbers get. And especially coming, on the heels of the CPI report, Consumer Price Index report we got, which you actually showed some interesting data that it's consistent with, that showed that core inflation is all the way down to 1.6%. And so I think that these numbers are showing that President Trump's trade policy and his supply side policy, which is really increasing new factory production and so on, is having a big effect, as is his trade policy. So if we abstract from the reduction of the trade deficit, then the 4.3% number would only be 2.6%. So Trump's trade policy is really working as well.
Spoken with the presidents of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. He said he invited both leaders to the G20 summit next year in Miami, Florida. In a Truth Social post, Trump said the leaders had discussed ongoing conflicts and trade. Trump called the U.S. relationship with both countries, quote, spectacular. The G20 is made up of 19 nations, as well as the European Union and the African Union. The group meets annually. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, G20 countries account for 85% of global economic output and about 2/3 of the world's population. And President Trump says the U.S. needs Greenland as a matter of national security. It comes as the president named Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry as his special envoy to the region. The announcement sparked renewed criticism from the leaders of Denmark and Greenland. They said the United States won't take over Greenland and demanded respect for their national sovereignty. Tom commented on Greenland while taking questions from the media at an event in Florida just yesterday.
We need Greenland for national security, not for minerals. We have so many sites for minerals and oil and everything. We have more oil than any other country in the world. We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it.
And President Trump unveiled plans yesterday to build a new class of battleships as part of his vision to strengthen the military. The so-called Trump-class ships will be part of the administration's vision for a, quote, golden fleet. It's aimed at deterring U.S. adversaries like Communist China.
As Commander-in-Chief, it is my great honor to announce that I have approved a plan for the Navy to begin the construction of two brand new, very large, the largest we've ever built, battleships. They'll help maintain American military supremacy, revive the American shipbuilding industry, and inspire fear in America's enemies all over the world.
President Trump made the announcement at his Mar-a-Lago residence in Palm Beach, Florida. He says the new warships will be the largest with 100 times the force. The president also pushing to speed up ship manufacturing, saying he's planning to meet with major defense contractors next week to hash out the details. He said the plan is to begin with 2 ships, expand to 10, and eventually increase the total to between 20 and 25. In recent years, the U.S. has seen significant slowdowns in ship making. President Trump signing an executive order back in April, ordering a government-wide reform to fast-track production. The U.S. hasn't built any battleships since World War II, with the last American battleship retiring in 1992. And with us now is former Navy officer Brent Sadler, who is a research fellow for naval warfare at the Heritage Foundation. Brett, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on. Merry Christmas to you. What do you make of this idea of the president's? Why hasn't the U.S. built a new battleship since World War II?
Yeah, well, Merry Christmas, and it's great to hear the president remain as engaged and as excited for reviving the nation's Navy, and certainly even wider, its maritime industrial base, something that's going to have to be done if we're serious about waging a new Cold War that the Chinese Communist Party has already started against us many years ago. On the question of the battleship, I think it's going to be a lot of work still ahead to design and then decide how to build it. And that really requires a good, deep analysis of what our shipyards can do today or in the near future. Certainly getting started on something like this, I hope, has already begun. The design work must be a critical first element of that. But the Navy needs a large warship, something akin to a battle cruiser to protect, providing air and missile defense of our aircraft carrier strike groups, while at the same time adding extra firepower like a battleship of World War II.
But some say the battleship is obsolete, Brent.
Well, that's why it's a modern corollary is what I think we're talking about here. The pictures, I think, are a quick artist rendering. I don't think that's necessarily going to be what the final picture of the ship will look like. But very clearly, the requirement that the President and the Secretary of Navy mentioned, the provision of a large number of long-range hypersonic ballistic missiles means that this ship will have the range to strike from well over 1,000 miles. So this is a modern battleship. This is not our grandfather's World War II Pacific War ship that's being envisioned.
Other than protecting the homeland, how else do you think these new battleships could help defend U.S. interests? Where would they go once they're ready?
So these ships are meant for taking the fight to the enemy. They would escort the carrier strike groups to provide that air and missile defense. Traditionally, this is performed by cruisers. The current but very aging Ticonderoga class cruisers have done that since the height of the Cold War, and it's their time. The last few of these ships are being decommissioned. So that's one role. The other role, of course, is going forward and operating within range of these long-range strike weapons. And so the ship will be armored. The ship will have very robust defenses because it will go into harm's way far from America's shores.
How about the new technology that will be on these ships? You said these aren't our grandfather's ships. What is some of the cutting-edge technology that we may expect to see on them?
Well, the U.S. Navy has been tinkering and making very accelerated advances in high-energy lasers. Now, these have been used by the Israelis in laser dome type or light kind of use to dazzle and distract pirates and small boats, but also to take out drones. So this was also mentioned yesterday at Mar-a-Lago. Expect to see an array of high-energy lasers for close-in defense. It helps mitigate the amount of ammunition and weapons you have to carry on board ship, of course. The other is bringing back another idea that's time has come yet again, and that's the railgun. And this uses electricity to propel at a very high speed, even faster than a normal gunpowder powered gun would be, to take down incoming hyper missiles, but also to shoot at very long range, but at very low cost, a projectile with high energy to take out hardened targets at long range from the ship.
On that point, Brent, I heard an interesting theory that one reason for these rail guns is actually that they're low technology, low tech, in a world where we're talking about AI, fiber optic communications, things like this. The technology itself can become a fail point. And actually on these ships, we may see somewhat of a return to low tech to kind of get around that. Anything to add on that?
Well, the first thing on low tech is you have to have the range and the endurance to actually reach these ships, which will be operating well out of normal enemy range. So low tech probably isn't going to cut it. Of course, trying to get in on a high-tech platform like a nuclear submarine and then launching torpedoes or drones, that's probably the closest thing to low tech. But of course, the platform to launch that attack is very high-tech. So it's not probably going to take something like swarms of drones based on where these ships will likely operate far from an enemy shore to be able to attack them. So that's one way of mitigating this.
That's fascinating. Brent, President Trump, he aims to have the first two battleships operational, I think, within 2.5 years, but he wants to eventually reach a total of around 20 to 25. Is the rate at which these ships are built dependent on U.S. shipyard infrastructure? How big a challenge is that?
Yes, absolutely. It is a function of shipyard capacity, but also the competencies that are there. Building this ship, and I think it's enlightening to see that the first flight, or the first series of these ships, will be a small order, 2 of them. And that'll start the process of standing up the shipyards, work out the design bugs, because nothing ever goes to plan, even in shipyards. So the first 2 of these will be a proof of concept. I would expect to see combinations of existing designs like the Zumwalt destroyer, which is also being modified right now in shipyard to carry these hypersonic weapons. It's also been a platform for that electric magnetic rail gun, which really it's the material science that's very advanced, not the technique or the technology of the gun, but the materials are a key element. And the Japanese self-defense forces are already taking this to sea now and continuing on America's decades of testing and development of this weapon system, which would also be revolutionary when it's fielded at scale at sea. So the shipyards have a long way to go. We're not where we need to be. There will be delays. There will be, design flaws that will have to get addressed because we are starting this up after many decades of not building warships on this scale, and the time is well overdue.
Well, let's talk about delays and urgency then, Brent. When it comes to closing the gap with China's Navy, reportedly operates, I believe, more warships than the United States. Is it simply a matter of numbers, or does the quality, the technology we've talked about, the purpose of these ships have a role in countering China?
Yeah, a better way to look at it, it's more nuanced. It's the manner in which the two militaries will fight and what their objectives will be that dictates the military key operational problems that they have to address. For the People's Liberation Army, they've got a short distance, 90 miles or so. For an amphibious landing, that's a massive distance. But their range to the battle is much shorter, and they'll be operating in combination with land forces. The U.S. military, on the other hand, will have to have expeditionary forces operating and living off the land in the first island chain, but at the same time surging in large naval and air forces. So it's a different key operational problem set, which means that the challenges are different and the weapon systems will be different. The numbers do matter. That certainly matters in the number of munitions. The Chinese will need a massive amount of these munitions to fight the way they want. The United States will need an episodic surges to mitigate the amount of quantity of these munitions that we'll need. So we tailor our way we fight. And at the end of the day, there's nothing more uncertain in human existence and risky than warfare.
It's a fascinating development. Brent Sadler at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you, Brent. Take care.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
And Congresswoman Harriet Hageman is running for a Senate seat. The Wyoming Republican was elected last year after beating former Representative Liz Cheney. Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis is not running for re-election. In her announcement video, Hageman touted her role in cutting taxes during President Trump's first term. Hageman also highlighted her efforts in helping to pass funding for border security and her support for deporting individuals in the U.S. illegally. As a Wyoming representative, Harriet served on the House Natural Resources Committee. She's also the chair of the Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries. She also serves in the Subcommittee on Energy and Mineral Resources. Hageman also serves on the House Judiciary Committee. And the Food and Drug Administration has approved Novo Nordisk's weight loss drug. This gives the Danish drug maker a leg up in the market race for launching oral weight loss medications. Here are the details.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved Novo Nordisk's weight loss pill on Monday. The 25-milligram pill is made of semaglutide, the same active ingredient in injectable Wegovy and Ozempic. The pill will be sold under the brand name Wegovy. A 64-week late-stage study showed participants who took 25 milligrams of oral semaglutide once daily lost more body weight on average than those on a placebo. The pill was approved for chronic weight management in adults with obesity or overweight and at least one related health condition. This expands the patient pool at a time when obesity-related healthcare costs are climbing. It could help open a door to tens of millions of untapped patients in a global market forecast to be worth some $150 billion a year by the next decade. The approval could help spur a turnaround for Novo after a rocky year of sliding shares and profit warnings. Its injectable Wegovy faces slowing sales amid intense competition from Eli Lilly and pressure from compounded versions. Shares of Novo jumped 8% and Lilly fell 1% in extended trading after the approval announcement. David Moore, Novo's executive vice president of U.S. operations, said a daily pill could boost interest and uptake of the drug. Analysts say the pills could make up about a fifth of the market by 2030.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. U.S. airports are gearing up for what's expected to be an extremely busy holiday travel season. TSA says it's fully staffed and ready to screen more than 44 million travelers during the holiday period that began Friday and runs through January 4th. That will be a record if those projections hold up. Passengers arriving at airports will see some changes from a year ago. TSA now requires travelers to have a real ID. The agency also has a new pre-check line for members of the military and other uniformed service members. Some airports also have dedicated screening lines for families. and passengers no longer have to take their shoes off when they go through security checkpoints. And the Department of Justice is suing the local government of Washington, D.C. over alleged restrictions on certain semi-automatic weapons. It says that they go against the Second Amendment. The DOJ filed a lawsuit yesterday naming D.C.'s Metropolitan Police and outgoing Chief of Police Pamela Smith as defendants. According to the lawsuit, the DOJ says that D.C. has established a pattern of ignoring the 2008 Supreme Court decision in Heller versus the District of Columbia. The High Court decided in that case that the Second Amendment protects the rights of individuals to keep guns in their homes for self-defense. According to the Metropolitan Police Department website, their list of banned firearms, including machine guns and assault weapons, are deemed unsafe by the Firearms Regulation Act of 2008. This is just the latest clash between the federal government and D.C. following a federal law enforcement intervention in the nation's capital over the summer. And attorneys general from 21 Democratic-led states and the District of Columbia have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. They're seeking to block the administration's effort to defund the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The plaintiffs argue that the administration's position is unconstitutional and undermines Congress. The states contend that without funding, the agency will not be able to fulfill its obligations. The CFPB was created under President Barack Obama in 2011, following the 2008 financial crisis. But unlike most agencies, it draws funds directly from the Federal Reserve's combined earnings instead of annual congressional appropriations. President Donald Trump has called for the dismantling of the Bureau since January, with White House Budget Chief and acting CFPB Director Russell Vought halting most agency operations. And the Department of Justice is suing the governor of Illinois and the state's attorney general over two immigration laws passed in the state this year. One law prevents federal law enforcement officers from making arrests on the inside, on the way to, or returning from any Illinois courthouse. Officers in violation of the law may be held liable for civil damages. The other law allows residents to bring lawsuits against officers enforcing immigration laws in certain settings, including hospitals and schools. That's if the U.S. or state constitution is violated. The DOJ says the new laws threaten the safety of federal officers trying to enforce immigration laws. And thousands of new U.S. Army recruits from Fort Benning, Georgia, have begun returning home just in time for some Christmas cheer. The trainees arrived at the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta on Friday and were given gift bags before boarding their flights back home.
We have upwards of 9,000 basic trainees that are in some stage of their initial entry training into the Army that are going to get to go home for Christmas. So all training at Fort Benning pauses for the holiday season, and we, in a very deliberate manner, get them all onto buses up to the airport and to their flights in an orderly and efficient manner.
Well, when I get home, originally, I can't wait to see my dog. That's what I'm most excited for, but I'm probably going to go see my grandparents and see how they're doing, because I haven't talked to them in so long, and I know they're missing me.
Roughly 45,000 trainees across 21 training sites will take to the air and roads as the Army pauses all basic training for its annual holiday leave. Trainees will have roughly 2 weeks of leave before returning to complete their transformation into U.S. Army soldiers. And before leaving for the winter break, our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez spoke with lawmakers who sent their best wishes to our audience this holiday season. Take a look.
Wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a very, very prosperous New Year. This is the time to reflect and be with family and reflect on how lucky we are to live in the greatest country in the world.
Well, I just want to say to all the people in my district and also in the United States and around the world, Merry Christmas. This is a time where we celebrate as Catholics and as Christians the birth of Jesus. I hope everybody keeps that in mind and tries to love their neighbor and remember that he came to serve all of us, especially the poor.
Is there anything that you or your family enjoy traditionally every year?
Yeah, we all get together. We all get together as a family. We pray together first before dinner, and then we sing Christmas carols. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, Merry Christmas. What an honor it is to serve in Pinellas County.
Oh yeah, we like visiting our parents, whether it's my wife's parents or mine, and seeing Grandma and Grandpa is always great for my kids.
you have any wishes for?
I hope everyone is safe and happy and healthy for the holidays.
I mean, for me, it's about the birth of Jesus Christ. Secondly, it's about spending time with family, and you never know how long they're going to be around. And tell your family you appreciate them. Be overly generous to them, and spend a lot of time with family.
Happy holidays to everybody back home. Very worried about the flooding and need relief. It's been a very, very tough week, so I hope everyone can find time to enjoy the holidays.
Well, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas or a Happy Hanukkah, depending on what they celebrate. Got a lot to be thankful for. President Trump's done a great job over the first 11 months of his presidency, and now we'll all take a great holiday break. Happy New Year, and then we'll be back at it as soon as we're done with the first of the year.
And still to come, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says new drafts to end the war between Russia and Ukraine include security guarantees. Meanwhile, at least 5 people were injured in a Russian drone attack in Kyiv. And Israel's defense minister says the Israeli military will never fully withdraw from Gaza. Those stories after the break. I'm Paul Greeny. This is World Watch. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said today that several documents have been drafted to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. He said the drafts include security guarantees, and over the weekend, U.S. officials held talks in Miami with Ukrainian and European delegations and had separate talks in Florida with Russian representatives. Ukrainian officials have sought assurances from allies to prevent another Russian invasion as part of any peace agreement. Meanwhile, at least 5 people were injured in a Russian drone attack in Kyiv today. Ukraine's State Emergency Service saying the strike damaged several residential apartments in the Ukrainian capital. And Israel's defense minister says the Israeli military will never fully withdraw from Gaza. He said today that a civilian military unit will be established in the Strip for security reasons. Israel and Hamas signed a U.S.-backed peace deal plan in October, and according to the agreement, the Israeli military would gradually but completely withdraw from Gaza. Israel also agreed not to re-establish civilian settlements in the enclave. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly ruled that possibility throughout the 2-year war. However, some of the members of his coalition disagree with that position. And Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has picked financier Mark Wiseman as the country's next ambassador to the United States. Wiseman will assume the role on February 15th and will be involved in trade negotiations with the U.S. and amid the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade pact, which is up for review in 2026, a deal President Donald Trump negotiated during his first term. Back in October, Trump cut off tariff negotiations with Carney after the Ontario provincial government ran an anti-tariff ad here in America. Nearly $2.7 billion worth of goods and services cross the U.S.-Canada border every day. And 2 men found guilty today of plotting to kill hundreds of Jewish people in the UK in an ISIS-inspired attack. Police and prosecutors said the 2 men are Islamic extremists who want to use automatic weapons to kill as many as Jews as they could. Police said if their plans were successful, the result would have been one of the deadliest terror attacks in U.S. history, if not the deadliest. Investigators say the planned attack demonstrates the resurgence risk posed by ISIS. And following the deadly Bondi shooting in Australia, the country's most populous state is set to pass tougher gun laws, ban the display of terrorist symbols, and curb protests. Here are the details.
Australia's New South Wales is about to pass stricter gun laws as authorities stepped up their response to the anti-Semitic attack. The new law will also ban showing terrorist symbols in public and curb protests. This comes after a mass shooting at a Bondi Beach Hanukkah event that killed 15 and injured dozens.
We've got one step to go, but it will be a clear message and clear progress to keep the people of New South Wales safe, whether that's on gun regulation in New South Wales or secondly on protests in order, changes to protests in order to lower the temperature in Sydney, and a bit of acknowledgement that in some cases words lead to actions.
Activist groups said they plan to launch a constitutional challenge to the law.
We're all gathered here today as a broad coalition to unite to announce that today we are launching a constitutional challenge to Chris Minns' latest range of undemocratic anti-protest laws, which unfortunately we expect to pass the Parliament today.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said his government would address hate speech and gun control. The centre-left Labour government wants to limit most people to 4 firearms per license. Farmers can own as many as 10. Australia made gun laws much tougher after a 1996 shooting that killed 35 people, but gun ownership has grown since then. A police firearms registry showed more than 70 people in New South Wales each own over 100 guns.
And still to come, in the NFL, 44-year-old Philip Rivers put on a turn-back-the-clock performance last night, but was it enough? NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss. And Christmas markets on Lake Geneva are drawing hundreds of thousands of visitors. Santa Claus and his reindeer drop by to provide some holiday cheer. And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, almost Christmas. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again, Paul.
Yeah, likewise. Dave, football last night. We spoke yesterday. 44-year-old Philip Rivers had a pretty good night.
I'll say, I was impressed. You know, the announcers are impressed. That includes Troy Aikman, Hall of Fame quarterback. With less than 2 weeks of practice, this guy under his belt, completes 23 of 35 passes for 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception for him. Now, unfortunately for him, his counterpart, Brock Purdy, was nearly perfect last night. 295 yards, 5 touchdown passes from Purdy. That's the most by a San Francisco 49ers quarterback in more than 30 years.
Wow.
Niners won it. Yeah, right. Niners won it 48-27.
Wow.
I will say it was very close until about the middle of the 4th quarter. So that's the Colts' now 5th straight loss. That's after an 8-2 start there. They're now 8-7. They're not completely eliminated from the playoffs yet, but they're going to need a lot of help if they're actually going to get there. Meanwhile, San Francisco 11-4 now. They've already clinched a playoff spot. They have the 2nd best record in the conference, also in the division. They're still 1 game behind Seattle in both races there. So 49ers are in. Colts need some help if they are going to get in.
Big night for the 49ers.
Big
Wow.
night. They look like Super Bowl champions, I gotta say.
Really?
That. They do.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll hold you to it.
Okay.
Hey,
good.
also in the league, rosters are out, Pro Bowl rosters. What do you make of it?
Well, one of the big things was Travis Kelce.
Yes.
11th straight Pro. Or 11th,
Who is he again? He's married to someone.
Well, he's not quite married to her yet.
He's engaged to someone.
Yeah, some big celebrity singer.
I know her name. Her name's coming to me.
I can't remember her name, to be honest. I only know him as a football player. I know his.
You're not a Swiftie?
Yes. Swift.
Oh, you really forgot her name.
I really forgot her name. I'm so focused on the football side of it.
He's really a Swiftie. He's really a Swiftie. He just doesn't want to admit it.
This is his 11th Pro Bowl selection, by the way, Bob. Believe it or not, he has a life outside of his girlfriend/wife.
Really?
Very good tight end. He's going to be a Hall of Famer whenever he decides to retire. 11 Pro Bowl selections. That's the 2nd most ever by a tight end. Now, elsewhere, our Colts guard Quentin Nelson made his 8th straight Pro Bowl in 8 NFL seasons. He's only the 2nd offensive lineman ever to do that. Chargers tackle Joe Alt played just 6 games this year. He was named a Pro Bowl. That's out of 15 games. That must have been quite a 6-game performance there, though. So the Pro Bowl will be played first week of February. That's the week before the Super Bowl. Now, it's no longer actual like a full contact game. They're going to have some skills competitions and a flag football game there. So it's honestly, it's more of a thing to be selected for it because the week itself isn't really that special, I guess.
Activities and tag football sounds like 4th of July.
It's not as big as pro football.
Hey, NBA. Oklahoma Thunder beat the Memphis Grizzlies last night. What'd you make of it?
Well, you know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, here's what happened. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 31 points last night. That's was his 100th straight game with 20 or more points in the game. Only the great Wilt Chamberlain had a longer streak. 126 games that guy did back in the early 60s. Now, meanwhile, the win for Oklahoma City moved the record to now 26-3. Now, if you remember, they had an NBA, yeah, very good. They had an NBA record start, 24-1. That was the best 25-game start in NBA history. They then lost 2 out of 3, but they won last night. Still have the best record in the league. Still are on pace for an NBA record, 74 wins. That would be one more than the Golden State Warriors had 9 years ago.
Good.
They are very good. These are the reigning NBA champions. They returned everyone from that team, and everyone is still young. It's quite a story right now. Their next game is going to be on Christmas, where they take on the Spurs. There's 5 NBA games on Christmas. The NBA likes to really own that holiday, and looks like they'll do it again this year.
I know someone who's going to be watching it, that's for sure. I'd bet on it.
Yes, for sure. We got NFL games that day too. There's a lot going on.
You got a lot of screens.
You know, I do. I've got a couple TVs at home.
Dave Martin, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks,
See you soon.
Paul.
And Christmas markets are on Lake Geneva this year, and they are drawing hundreds of thousands of visitors from around the world. Even Santa Claus and his reindeer are dropping by to provide some holiday cheer. Here's more on the festivities.
Santa Claus has arrived early this year in Switzerland. He and his reindeer ride across Lake Geneva over the Montreux Christmas market. Drinks like mulled help visitors warm up. Montreux Christmas Market was established in 1994.
You have a bit of Swiss wine, a bit of German wine, and a bit of French wine. In terms of taste, it will be a wine that will be lighter. We also offer Swiss hot wine. This is local wine from the canton of Vaud. In terms of taste, it will be a wine that will be more coarse and spicy.
A group of friends started the event to liven up the town, which used to be sleepy during Christmas season. Now, in 2025, the market stretches nearly a mile long. But Old St. Nick is the star of the show.
The Santa Claus, the flying Santa Claus for sure, and the view. You don't have any other market like this with this view on the lake. I think it's pretty spectacular.
Santa's early appearance is only possible with experienced helpers. That's what it takes for the flight across 1,200 feet of zip line.
And it's a specific team from approximately 20 years who is coming every year to make it happen and to build all this. And we can see it's a really long way over the lake.
Most people here are locals, but an increasing number of visitors travel from abroad.
We have between 500,000 and 600,000 visitors a year here, and 50% of them are from Switzerland, and the other 20% are from Europe, and 30% are internationally coming from Asia or other country, Asia and America.
Alice Mann and Maya Khan are visiting from New York City. They came here to see Santa.
Yeah, well, we wanted to come to visit the Flying Santa and the Chillin Castle, but we love it. It's our first day here. It's really nice. Very much holiday market vibes, Christmas vibes, so yeah, we love it.
Khan said she wanted to try one of Switzerland's most famous products.
We just heard in New York, Swiss chocolate is very rich, very creamy, and we just wanted to check that out.
Nearby towns along the lake host their own Christmas markets as well. In addition to sweets, visitors can enjoy traditional cheesy Swiss fondue and other savory treats. Santa might need some to fuel up for his upcoming trips.
And Ukrainian chefs are tossing a Russian-inspired dessert and replacing it with a local alternative. Inspired by the country's most famous ballerina, the new pudding highlights Ukraine's unique culture and heritage. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
Traditionally called pavlova, Ukrainian eateries have a new name for the dessert. Cafes and restaurants have dubbed the sweet Kurinska after Ukrainian-born ballerina and costume designer Vavara Kurinska. Lviv restaurant owner Andriy Dzubon welcomes the change.
People wondered why it was a Russian ballerina, why this dessert, and so on.
And I was honestly very happy when I saw the news that Vsevolod and his team were developing an alternative dessert.
Ballerina Victoria Zavalrich says Varvara Karinska's most enduring invention is the modern tutu, and that's what the dessert looks like. She says the dress allowed ballerinas to move more.
Before Varvara Karinska, ballet tutus were very bulky, with metal structures and layers of tulle. Some examples still exist today. She managed to remove the metal spokes and frames, freeing the legs, making them visible, and importantly, she redesigned the corset.
Vsevolod Polishuk is one of the minds behind the dessert. Polishuk and a team experimented with different shapes and ingredients to create the new dessert. He explains the factors that drove them to innovate.
Of course, it is very difficult for us to talk about asking people in New Zealand or the US to stop eating pavlova. But here in Ukraine, avoiding triggers for the mothers of fallen soldiers, I believe this is a very important task.
Karinska pudding has a meringue shell. Inside is cream, fruit, and buckwheat. Dessert recipe author Miroslava Novosad explains how the pudding is unique to Ukraine.
Buckwheat is a staple of Ukrainian cuisine and isn't common in many other countries. It has a very distinct flavor when baked. It tastes a bit like nuts.
Novosad explains why the name change is so important to Ukrainians.
Since the start of the full-scale invasion, we have refused to make the pavlova dessert. It simply doesn't taste good, feels wrong, when missiles are flying at us from Russia and making normal life impossible.
For those who want a taste of Ukraine, full recipes for the dessert are available online. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And a baby reindeer in the UK is getting ready to step up as Santa Claus needs him this year. The animal's owner says he's prepared if his spot opens up in Santa's roster.
This is Lars. The baby reindeer is 7 months old. He likes the outdoors, but loves being inside with his owner, Angie Nelson, even more. Nelson raised him at this reindeer farm in England.
How did it happen? That's the question I kind of have to keep asking myself. His mum didn't have enough milk, and the only option to us was to take him in and basically become his mother.
Nelson says reindeer are difficult to raise, so the decision to bring the calf into her house was a big one. He slept near Nelson for 2 weeks in her living room.
The key was the love. And it sounds weird in companionship. The mothers dote on them. They really do. And I needed to give him that. Good boy!
Lars obeys commands like a dog would. That's because his first animal friends were the ones on the farm. Lars is now reintroduced to the rest of the herd. Nelson says Lars is ready to step up if Santa needs a reindeer to fill in this Christmas.
Yes, we are going for a ride.
He'll take one of ours and then return them on the flight back out of the country. I have a feeling he's going to be one of those reindeer which is going to be leading a sleigh. How can he not?
Okay, Mara.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And there goes St. Nick. And if you have any feedback on the show, maybe you'd like to see us cover something in particular, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to cover more ruse right after this break.
I'm Kevin Hogan, and on behalf of the NTD News Today team, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a joyous holiday season.